All right, let's begin the conversation. The aviation sector is critical to national development because it is one of the key drivers of the economy. As such, President Bola Tinubu promised a robust aviation sector with focus on improving airport runways and other critical infrastructure to guarantee the growth, development and safety of the sector. Now, since inception of his administration in May 2023, President Bola Tinubu has emphasized that the administration will focus on modernization and expansion of airport facilities, improve aircraft maintenance, safety measures and incident reporting requirements regarding domestic airlines, as well as ensure fairness and transparency in ticket pricing for international and domestic airlines. The president appointed a senior advocate of Nigeria, Festus Keyamo, as the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development in August 2023 to drive this lofty vision. Now, 1 year after inauguration, how has the minister fared on this assignment? Now, joining us for in-depth discussion on this issue is the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, SAN. Minister, thank you for joining us, Honorable Minister.
Can you hear us, Honorable Minister?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so good to have you join us. All right, so let's start the conversation this way. Let's start with your stewardship as the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace. How's the journey been so far?
Well, thank you. The journey has been interesting, has been full of challenges, full of energy too to face these challenges, full of innovations on our part as a government, full of ideas to turn around the sector in terms of policies that will drive the sector and also the ideas that will improve our infrastructure, because these are the two main pillars in the aviation industry: the improvement of infrastructure and the formulation of policies to ensure the growth of the sector. In the course of this conversation, we will go into details as to what we have done in respect of both policies and, of course, infrastructural development.
All right, let's talk about the Air Nigeria debacle, which remains knotty. Can you tell us more about the present situation and why it was halted?
Well, as it is today, it is not only the suspension by the government of the project. The court itself, there's a court judgment that has declared the whole process illegitimate and illegal, and that it was unfair. It did not follow the due process of law. So that puts it to clear finality. There is a court judgment. The airline operators from Nigeria were the ones who actually went to court before we came on board. So when we came on board, that litigation was ongoing. Let's make it clear. It's not that we went to court. We did not go to court. Those who felt cheated in the process, those who felt that it was not good enough for our country, as airline operators from Nigeria, they had approached the courts before we came on board as a government, because this controversy actually started, at the end, towards the end of the last administration, where even the Night Assembly, if you remember, the Night Assembly raised issues regarding that deal. However, the details of it are that why we suspended before even the courts came in to declare everything illegal was that we looked at the letters of the proposed agreement between us and, the consortium that were to come and form the Nigerian Air, and we felt it was not good enough for our country. First of all, we realized that the entity called Ethiopian Air is an entity owned by another government, owned by the Ethiopian government, wholly owned. So it was not, it's not a private ownership. And as such, they were coming to take control, total control of Nigerian Air. They were to provide the fleet to drive Nigerian Air. They were also the single biggest shareholder in that consortium, 49%. So it's virtually an Ethiopian Air a deal. The other people that they tried to put together, they didn't even have paid up share capital. Now, being a foreign government, they were to come to take over our heritage, our common heritage. And our common heritage is our national career. Now, as a country, as Nigeria as a country, has negotiated so many BASAs, so many bilateral service agreements. We have so many prime routes in this country. Prime routes to Jeddah, to New York, to South Africa, to London, and on like that. Now, these prime routes, we were going to hand over all our prime routes as a sovereign nation to another sovereign nation. That was the whole essence of it. That's the whole, that's the bottom of it, really. Because by Ethiopian Air coming to take over our aviation ecosystem, we're virtually handing over our country in terms of our aviation, industry to another country. Because as a national carrier, if you know, the national carrier has priority over those routes, even over other domestic airlines. The other parts of that deal was that we were going to be paying Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Air, $112 million over a period of 12 years for providing the fleet that was supposed to be their equity contribution to the deal. Apart from the fact that they are going to be taking the ticket prices, taking all of that, and benefiting from the route, we are still going to be committed to pay them $112 million over a period of 12 years. So we asked ourselves, what are you bringing to the table? They said it's foreign direct investment. All of the interest, all of the profit, everything was going to Addis Ababa. Again, we gave them tax holidays. Even the staff, clause 6 of the agreement, I can make it public. Clause 6 of the agreement says that even the staff they were going to forward from Addis Ababa to Nigeria, they were not going to pay taxes to the Nigerian government. And they were going to take charge of the key managerial positions in Nigerian Air. Key managerial positions. The CEO, the chief operating officers, the financial officer, and on, the complete control of the managerial positions. So it was and then of course that would have killed the entire, local airlines that we are struggling to ramp up their capacities in this country. It was a deal that was very bad for the country. It was a deal, it was not Nigerian Air. The whole contraption, in essence, was an Ethiopian airline coming to fly our flag. And, even they said the place they were going to give to us on wet leases to run the Nigerian Air, they were not going to be registered in Nigeria. It was still going to be registered in Ethiopia. It was as bad as that. We're not going to be in control of anything. That was bad enough for us. It was a red flag.
Your Honorable Minister, some people have suggested that we should actually look within and convert two of our oldest airlines, two of our oldest domestic airlines, get them to merge and turn them to national carrier. I'm talking about ARIC and Aero. Is your administration thinking about that, or simply looking at other possibilities to ensure that Nigeria has a national carrier of its own?
Well, that is not on the table yet. There have been suggestions in the media, but it has not come before us. And when it comes before us, we'll look at the merits of the merits of it. However, all over the world, governments are divesting away from controlling and running any airline. We can have a Nigerian Air without governments fully running it. Because all these big airlines you see run by governments are heavily subsidized. It's not easy to run an airline for profit. All over Africa, whether Rwanda Air, Kenya Air, South Africa, they are heavily subsidized. Do we have that kind of money to subsidize that sector now? We know how Nigerian Airways went. Anything that you put in full control of government, any flight you see going out, half of the flight will be free by government officials will be and their children. You know what happened to Nigerian Airways? Every flight, half of the tickets were free by government officials and their children and their family members. So it's difficult for government to run any enterprise now profitably like that. When we sit down and Mr. President so directs, we shall come down with an idea, if we do want to go ahead, that is wholly Nigerian in terms of benefit to Nigerians, owned by Nigerians, controlled by Nigerians, and that's a true Nigerian, and for the benefit of the Nigerian people and for the Nigerian economy.
All right, let's talk about the CTC. Or you still have one more question? Okay, let's talk about the CTC, talking about Nigeria's global rating in terms of compliance with the Cape Town Convention, which rose to 70.5% from 49%. Minister, tell us, what does this mean for the industry and also the traveling public?
For the industry, it means increased capacity for our local airlines, increased capacity, because they can now access, the world of, lessors around the global world of lessors and creditors and financiers across the world. And that, of course, will translate to one, greater, capacity within the industry here. And then that would, affect prices in terms of prices can be competitive. There will be more routes that will be serviced by the local operators here, both local routes, domestic routes, regional routes, and of course international routes. That will eventually lead to lower prices of tickets. What we are seeing right now, the problem we have right now, is that we have a dwindling capacity within the industry in terms of access to aircraft. And as a government, we realized that very early when we came on board, that the high tickets you are seeing, the flight delays and flight cancellations, that leads to frustration at times. And for that, we feel extremely, sympathetic to the traveling public. We are really, really sympathetic to them and with them. However, we are addressing the problem frontally with what we have done with the Cape Town Convention. Now, what we have done is to ensure that we give comfort to the global, community in terms of the lessors and the financiers. We are giving them comfort that we are now ready to comply with the provisions of the Cape Town Convention. And that's why we went ahead to make the practice directions. What the practice directions clearly says is that, let me break it down, the Cape Town Convention for people who don't know, so that we don't go ahead using the technical terms for people, so that people don't know what we're talking about. The Cape Town Convention is a convention that regulates, the leasing of aircrafts around the world. And when these aircrafts and their engines and all that are leased and brought into a particular jurisdiction, there's a standardized way that you should treat those equipments. That's why they call them mobile equipment. If you look at the convention, it's a convention of mobile equipment. So there's a standardized way. So the convention standardized the template all over the world. Nigeria was not complying with that template. Nigeria was actually acting in breach of that convention over the years. And that was why Nigeria was blacklisted. Our scores dipped to about 49%, which is a failure for them. Okay? And then lessors didn't have any confidence again in our, domestic market. They were not giving us aircrafts on dry leases again. Our operators were operating under very difficult circumstances. They could only access aircraft across the world on ACMIs, which is the wet leases. And then that, of course, translated to high ticket prices because the cost of hiring those aircraft, 3 times more than the dry leases, they were translating it and passing it on to the passengers, and then we were paying for high tickets. So we as a government, we attacked that issue frontally, and guess what? Everybody was on the President and Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Tinubu, encouraged us and pushed us and gave us all the support. The Vice President at the head of the Business Enabling Council, once brought it to his attention, he was full of support. The former Chief Justice of Nigeria helped, the Attorney General of the Federation, the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice Bintan Yako, who headed a panel of 5 judges who looked at it and drafted the practice direction, and then finally we signed. The moment we signed, the next day, The next day, not even 48 hours, under 24 hours, the Aviation Working Group in London and New York shot up our scores immediately from 49% to 70.5%. And it's still rising. Babajide, I'll tell you that in the next few weeks, we are doing what they call the administrative rules called the DERA. We are on it now. We are almost there. Once the DERA is signed, the administrative rules also guides the NCA as to the number of days for which to deregister an aircraft if the lessee is defaulting. It's 5 days normally allowed by the administrative rules. Once they default, within 5 days you deregister and take the aircraft out of the country, and then it gives comfort to the financiers. We are almost there. Once that is done, our scores will shoot up again. This time maybe more than 80, but we're waiting to see how the Aviation Working Group will react to that.
Yes, I was going to ask if 70.5% was your best shot, because Nigeria...
No, we're not comfortable with that. We're not comfortable with that. I know, Babajide, when you were in school, I've heard the story that you were an A+ student. So I know 70 is not a good one for you.
It's not really. We hope we get better. I want us to talk a little bit about the domestic environment. Air tickets are extremely expensive at this time, and the frequency of flights has also dipped substantially. People are wondering whether Nigerian Airlines have a future given the very tough operating environment, the crash of the Naira, so to say. What can the government do to keep Nigerian Airlines alive despite the very tough environment that they found themselves?
Well, the best the government can do is to make the environment very, very conducive for them to operate. And I'll tell you the measures we have taken, apart from the Cape Town Convention, the measures we have taken to ensure that they survive. This is the first government in many, many decades that has put as part of their focal points, we have a 5-point agenda for the aviation industry. And one of the 5-point agenda is survival, sustenance, and support of the local operators. It has never been like that. In fact, in the past, sometime in the past, the attitude was that they have no capacity, they can't do it, don't support them, go and look for foreign airlines to come and help us run our domestic route. And that was the attitude that was even taken during the issue of Ethiopian Air. That was the policy. But we have shifted. We think that it is better to go to the root of the problem, ensure that whatever those countries have done right, that are getting the aviation sector right, we should also do those things too, to get it right. And that, of course, like you asked, what can government do? First of all, we have signed the Cape Town Convention, the practice direction. Our scores are going up, not for the benefit of government. Take note. This scores that's going up is for the benefit 100% of local operators, not even for government. And that's why you can see that they have been very full of praises recently for President Bola Tinubu and the way he's also directing us to drive the aviation sector. All the airline operators came, I'm sure you heard them, you saw them on tape, praising the president over and thanking him for the direction that he has directed us to take the aviation industry to. The second one is that government, it has been on before, but we are trying to enforce it strictly now. There is zero, import duties for aircraft, aircraft parts, commercial aircraft. So as I speak with you, all the imported parts for commercial aircraft, the boats, the knots, the technical, equipments, anything they import is zero duty, just to ensure that they survive, to ensure that they can continue to run, their operations, and on and on. So it is basically making policies and making the environment very conducive for them. The third one is that we are not even leaving them. We're not leaving them onto their own orders. It's okay, we have made policies, go ahead. No, we are on top of negotiations on their behalf. We are leading them to international negotiations. I led them to Boeing. I led them to Airbus in France too. In Boeing, and this dovetails into what we did with Boeing, When I went to Boeing, I went with all the airline operators in Nigeria. We went to strike a deal with Boeing. And I'm sure you saw the MOU with Boeing. The MOU was for no other thing but for the airline operators. That is what government should do. We went there, there was nine highlights of that MOU. And one of them is that we want to leverage on their connections around the world, their network of leasers and financiers across the world to bring aircraft on dry leases to Nigeria so that our businessmen here can access those aircraft for the benefit of the Nigerian people. Let me tell you how this operates. When you place order for, let's say, 10 aircrafts, normally it takes about 15 years to produce them or 10 years to produce them. It's not like off-the-shelf kind of purchase. When you do that, normally you cannot pay 100%. The financiers will come in and they will finance the purchase, the order, and then give it back to you on leasehold, on dry leases, and then you continue to pay as you operate, which is what they call the hire purchase, that we used to call the hire purchase those days. So that is how it operates. I just wanted to explain that to people for people to understand. So we now went to Boeing on their invitation because they saw that the Nigerian market is headed in the right direction. They are happy with this government. They invited us to say, look, we have done a survey about the Nigerian aviation industry and we think it's going in the right direction. So we went there on their invitation. Their market survey says that Nigeria has the highest domestic traffic in the entire African continent. Nigeria accounts for 80%. Only one country, 80% of the entire domestic travel in the whole of Africa. We don't know what we have here. We have the population, we have the economy, we have the people, we have, everybody, everything here. We have even the position to be the hub of Africa. So Boeing was extremely excited about Nigeria, and that's why they invited us, and they offered us this deal. And we gladly signed the MOU. So government, I was there, with the approval of Mr. President, to lead the airline operators there. The same thing happened with Airbus. Don't forget too that even in trying to access the London routes, government also did not allow the local airline, Airpeace, to carry the money alone. Government stood in that gap. We went to London. We negotiated. We made it known to them that this is our flag carrier. Not our national carrier, but our flag carrier. And that we designated Airpeace to run that route. And when, it was difficult for them to access the London route before we came to office, it was after many, shuttle back and forth to London that we managed to get Gatwick. And then, I'm sure you saw that we are also not still satisfied with getting Gatwick. We are not. We have also written to the, our British counterpart to say, look, we have given you our Tier 1 airport, which is, Lagos and Abuja. Give us your Tier 1 airport, which is also Heathrow. And then we are on it. When we get to a convenient curve on that, we shall inform the public as to where we are.
Now, Honorable Minister, let's talk about capacity. Many people believe that airlines in Nigerian Airlines should be able to do their MRO in Nigeria. And they point to those years when we were kids, when even Ethiopia Airline used to do their C-check here in Lagos. Today, our airlines fly their aircraft abroad to do C-checks, which is like helping to strengthen the economics of other lands. What can we do at this stage to ensure that the foreign exchange that our airlines born abroad in the name of C-checks can be, spent here rather than go abroad and spend all of that money? Can we look at the possibility of building such MRO facilities in Lagos, in Abuja, and maybe Akwa Ibom, for example, where our airlines can leverage on the opportunity and be able to save scarce foreign exchange?
Thank you. First of all, the one in Uyo, Akwa Ibom, is 90% ready. So there's an MRO there going on. I went there myself to visit them, and then We have given them all regulatory support, all government support. We have given them 100%. It's 90% ready. So there's a massive MRO coming up in Uyo. That's one. The second one is that we have signed a PPP already for Abuja. There's an MRO coming up for Abuja on a public-private partnership basis. Because, let me make it clear, there's no way government itself can build and maintain an MRO now. No, I mean on its own. What government has is government has the runways, government has the support, government has the land, the space at the airports, because you can't build an MRO without a runway. So anybody coming to build runways, build MROs, we have to depend on our runways. We can take them to anywhere, Ilorin, Warri, Kaduna, anywhere there's an, there's a runway. We have identified that. There's one signed already for Abuja. We are advertising in the next few days. We are advertising, watch out for the adverts, to call, and we are working with the ICROC in that regard. Finally, we are going to take it to the Federal Executive Council for Mr. President to approve. But we have started the process to tell you that we have identified that process as one of the things we have to achieve as a government. So we are calling for public-private partnership, not for one or two MROs, for a number of MROs within the country. Not for only narrow bodies, but for wide bodies, for the 777s, for those intercontinental, aircrafts that can travel, different continents, not just for the narrow bodies. So we are looking at that, and we are advertising very soon. So many people are talking to us. The Chinese are talking to us. The Arabs are talking to us. Americans are talking to us. They're all interested in our economy. And let me tell you why they're interested. They know that an MRO will be a money spinner in Nigeria. It will serve not only Nigeria, it will serve the whole of West Africa and Central Africa. There's no MRO in the whole of West Africa and Central Africa. And that is why they are very much interested in establishing an MRO in Nigeria. So, Babajide, you'll be very proud of us, very soon on that. We are actually frontally attacking that issue.
All right, thank you, Honorable Minister. Let's talk about the return of Emirates Airlines to the country. How significant is this for Nigeria?
Well, all credit, all praise go to the President Bola Tinubu, who actually took that, by the scruff of the neck when he came into office. He saw that our relationship had gone downhill with the UAE. Tickets, flights were suspended, visas were suspended. And it took the courage of the leader, our leader, President Bola Tinubu, to stand up and say, look, let me go and discuss this myself. So he didn't send any of us. He took us along, and we all went to the UAE and discussed, the two leaders discussed, and then set the stage for us to continue. We, the lieutenants, the foot soldiers. Once that discussion took place, we started working hard to realize, to bring to fruition what they had discussed, and that was last year. So it took me so many months of new negotiations, back and forth, from here to Dubai, for us to be ready with that. And then, you saw that last week we came with the first flight, resumption after many years of suspension. We came back with the first flight of Emirates. But then, what does it mean for us? At the end of the day, that is still a foreign airline. And so we know that ultimately, we still want to ramp up the capacities of our local airline to be able to match such airlines. But for now, it provides a very huge alternative for Nigerian passengers. For now, Emirates has the capacity now to provide the alternative Nigerians need in flying abroad. Because if you fly to Dubai, Dubai connects almost all parts of the world. So to open that flank, for the president to push us to open that flank for Nigerians is a huge one for Nigerians. Do not forget that Nigerians have a lot of investments in Dubai. Nigerians have invested a lot in Dubai in terms of businesses, trade, and all kinds of things. Even for holidays, people go, they see Dubai as a very good alternative now to Europe and America to go for holidays. Families go there for holidays a lot. So it is a good one that the president has done, has given the Nigerian people. Nigerians have been very excited by the return of Emirates. But then, in negotiating a new BASA to restart the relationship, we also ensured that we protected our local airlines. We gave our local airlines the right of first refusal in terms of interlining or code sharing. So we told them that, look, if you want to interline or code share, our local airlines should be given the first rights to please work with you. And they have been talking to some of the local airlines. In fact, I took some of them to Dubai to begin talks with Emirates. As I speak with you, negotiations are going on behind the scenes. I pray those negotiations, something comes out of it as quickly as possible for them to interline and cooperate. And that, of course, will ramp up the capacities of any local airline, or the local airlines, I mean, that can strike that kind of deal with Emirates. We're going beyond even the resumption of flights. We are even talking about them coming to do a hub here, just like Qatar is doing for Rwanda now in Kigali. They can come and do a hub here for West Africa and Central Africa for them to, to bring the operation. And that would be huge in terms of employment if they can do a hub. Not just bring planes, but hub. Build a real hub here so that we can employ a lot of Nigerians into that hub, and then they can increase their activities within the sub-region.
All right, still continue with the conversation. Let's talk a little bit more about infrastructure in our airports. Now, we heard about the installation of e-gate service at the airports. Tell us, what's the situation on this?
Well, there are two types. The one is the one for the passports, and that is the cooperation between us and Interior. That was an interministerial cooperation, and that's beautiful. If you go see what is happening there, my brother, the Minister of Interior, did a lot of work there with myself, and then we cooperated, and that, of course, is going on beautifully. In the past, some of this interministerial cooperation has been, aborted, by so much quarrels, power play and all that. But we have an excellent relationship, myself and my brother in Interior, and we have cooperated a lot in terms of their duties there at the airport. But beyond the e-gates for the passports, we also want to automate our own gates outside the airports. So we want to automate them and take it away from this manual control where people drive into the airport, you tear tickets and give them money, tear tickets. Who does that these days? Go and look all over the world. Nobody does that. If you drive into a public place, it's automated. The gates open, you put your ticket in, the gates open. When you're going in, you take a ticket out. When you're coming out, you pay. So you don't argue with anybody here, you have to beat up people first and all that before you can, big men, we have to beat up our staff before they can access those kind of places and all of that. We are, looking at that now. And we are also concessioning that because we don't have the money to bring in all of those equipments now. And then we also don't have the efficiency, the bureaucracy does not have the efficiency to run that type of thing. So it is also one of the things we are concessioning. Let me tell you this. All the infrastructure ministries, all of them, no one can do without going to PPP. None. Water resources, FCT, works, housing, blue economy, aviation. These are the big infrastructure ministries. All of us are looking at PPPs. And that's the only way. And that's how governments run all over the world these days. Most of the things are run by private, by private enterprise. Even the big airports like Heathrow and most of the airports in America, they are run by private, people. They are concessioned out. So that is what we are doing also with, the entry into the airports. We want to automate the gates, automate the parking also to raise a lot of revenue for government. And that is why also we said when we took our memo to council, and Mr. President graciously approved it, we said there should be no discrimination. Everybody should pay. Coming into there should be no big man or poor man. We're all Nigerians, we should pay. It doesn't make any sense that it is the poor men that pay for services in Nigeria and big men don't pay. And yes, it's the big men that have the money, but they don't pay. But they now we squeeze out money all the time from poor people. They are the ones that pay taxes, pay for gates, pay for everything. I thought that was not right. And Mr. President graciously approved it. It is only when we automate our gates, our collection system, park and pay, and the gate, that we can get the full benefit of that council memo that was approved.
All right. Honorable Minister, can you give us an update on the expansion of the Abuja runway and how far you've gone by way of paying compensation to the people who live in the area that you have acquired for the purpose of expanding that runway?
Well, we paid full compensation. When we came in, the matter was, I met the matter on my table when we came in. The contractors could not mobilize to site. The previous government had paid them some seed money, to move to site, but they could not move to site. Working together with my counterpart in the Ministry of FCT, and yes, I'm Wike, we came together. I'm sure you saw the tape. Myself and Wike worked very hard. We first made about 800 and something million naira available, close to 900 million for the first phase, and we paid all of them, and they moved out of sight, and we were able to move into sight. But we still have some pockets of people at the end of the runway. That is, runways are like 3-point-something kilometers, almost 4 kilometers. So it's a large expanse. So the first set has moved out from where we begin the runway, even where we end the runway. It's at the middle of the runway, the area when there are one or two, sets of people that are still there that were claiming, that they have not, they want more money. You know how Nigerians behave when they hear, compensation. We have also made additional 200 and something million naira available to those ones again to move out. So we have moved to site. The contractor, CCECC, they have started. They have moved to site, and we like Oliver Twist, we are going to go back and ask very soon for more money so that they can actually hasten the work. It's not the expansion, it's just the second runway, just to put it in proper context. It's not an expansion, it's the second runway. It's not right that a nation's capital should be operating on just one runway. That is danger to us. If anything happens to that runway, there will be complete chaos in the nation's capital.
So when do you project that project will be put to bed?
Well, it was originally projected for 12 months if money is available. I repeat, if the full amount is available. But now, because we didn't start on time, there will be variation. The cost has gone up, because we don't, in terms of construction, almost all the ministries now who are giving out contracts 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they are doing variation. And that's a reality because the cost of dollar to naira was not the same at that time. It's more than triple now. So once the monies are available, 12 months should be fine for them to complete. It is the rest of the money we will pursue right now.
Well, in spite of that, we still have problems about decaying infrastructure at the airports, as well as unnecessary waste of people's time at the luggage carousels. What are you doing to freshen the infrastructure at the airports and reduce the time that people spend waiting to receive their baggage, especially for domestic operations?
There are two approaches to this. One is the short term, one is the long term. The long term approach is a full concession of the airports. Some efforts started before we came into office, but nothing had been signed. No contract had been signed. So when we came in, we thought we should look at it again. In fact, people had dragged themselves to court. When we came in, they dragged themselves to court, and we thought we shouldn't wait for these people to be fighting in court whilst our, airports remain, unattended to, and their, infrastructure will be decaying. So we, with the blessing of Mr. President, we halted that process. We are restarting and getting the best in the world. Mr. President said, go and get the best. Nobody's interested in who gets it, but get the best in the world. Finally, we'll look and take it back to Mr. President for all of us to make a choice, especially when if they go through the whole ICROC, the process of the ICROC, the statutory process, they will go through, and government itself, in sitting in council at the Federal Executive Council, will make a choice. Now, that is the long-term plan. The airports that we thought were not viable before, which is Port Harcourt, Enugu, that people did not bid for at that time, there are so many bidders for those airports now. They think they are viable. Because you see, maybe we did not project the non-aeronautical revenues we can get from those airports as much as possible. Because airports are made up, revenues in airports are made up of the aeronautical revenues and the non-aeronautical revenues. The non-aeronautical revenues can be far, far more than even the aeronautical revenues, which are the core revenues coming from an airport. So, for all those other airports, we think they are viable. Investors now even think they know they are viable, and they are bidding for them. The advert, like I said, will be out also very soon for people to come and bid. That's the long-term plan. But in the meantime, short-term, while we are looking for big investors, are we going to wait for years when Nigerians are suffering? No. We are looking for short-term plans too, to make sure that at least what we have now, the airports we have now, they are kept usable, clean, and we keep them going. So we are also cooperating with a lot of private people who are helping us to do parts of the airport. If you go to the E-wing now of the international airport, we have finished the arrival of the E-wing. That is a beautiful place, the E-wing. When you are arriving into the airport through the E-wing, beautiful. Shell helped us to do that. We cooperated with Shell, together with my brother at Interior, and then we did the E-wing, the arrival. Right now, another big bank, I won't mention them now until we commission it. They are doing the departure of E-wing. That will be beautiful. I was there myself 3 weeks ago or thereabout. The work is going on excellent way. New chillers, new lifts, new carousels. You talked about carousels. They are bringing in new carousels. It's going to be a very, very beautiful place. So those are the short-term plans we're having with some, and then we're giving them a lot of mileage, do that. They can put their adverts in the airports and all that. So they're having something in exchange too. Some are also corporate social responsibility. They are doing it as corporate social responsibility now. So we are cooperating in that regard to make sure the chillers are working, the lifts are working, and the carousels are working.
All right, Honorable Minister, talk to us. How are you collaborating with other ministries, especially the Ministry of Interior, concerning sanitizing bad eggs? I mean, bad eggs that embarrass the country and exploit passengers at the airport. How are you doing that collaboration?
Thank you. We have gone far in laying a roadmap on how to tackle this issue. I used to say that, look, people just come to, when they see anything happening at the airport, everybody begins to tag me. Tag Keyamo, because he's in charge of the airport. But they fail to realize that we have so many other agencies within the airport who are not under my control. We have the NDLA, we have the customs, we have the immigration, we have the EFCC, and on like that. Port Authority too is there under health. But then, what we're doing, we are all working now under the National Security Advisor, who called all of us together and decided that we must find a way out of this problem, because it's giving the country a bad image, a very, very bad image. So the National Security Advisor has now obtained 1,000 cameras. We were called to a meeting a couple of weeks ago. We have now shared the cameras between all the agencies, FAN, immigration, customs, and all at the airports. Now, the cameras are going to be live cameras with a control center somewhere, a live control center. So whatever is happening at the airport, we are seeing it real time at the control center. And that should give passengers some comfort. And then we can bring of course, when you have cameras, everybody will behave, because we are extremely embarrassed that they keep harassing passengers, asking them for money, extorting them, and that is not, that's not good enough. So we are looking at that, and we have gone far with that. In the meantime, as Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, we have on our own decided to educate passengers. If you arrive at the international airport in Lagos now, you will see banners everywhere saying that do not pay bribe, do not give bribe. And then we put phone numbers that you can call instantly. Not only phone numbers, we put a barcode. You can just, snap the barcode and submit your complaints immediately. We are going to fish out that bad egg and deal with that bad egg. But I must mention something in this program. This is a program by which I must mention something. There's also a small responsibility on the part of passengers too. And what is that responsibility? The responsibility is to behave courteously and respectfully. If you have a complaint or something is done against you, it is not your remedy to attack law enforcement agencies too. Do your recording as to what they are doing to you. We accept that so that it can be evidence. Report them. We will deal with them. But it is an offense under the law to seize a law enforcement officer, harass him, drag his shirt, shout. It is an offense under the law. Let people be clear about that. I have practiced human rights for 30 years. Nobody's going to teach me that. And I must also protect my officers at the airports too. While we rein them in, while we are putting all these measures to rein them in, and we flush out the bad egg, we are begging to and pleading with the law, with the public, to also be cautious and respectful towards them too. I will not tolerate it. No matter whose ox is God, I will not tolerate it. I sit down here because you say you are always right because you are a passenger to harass people and shout at them and tear their uniforms and seize them. I will not allow that too. You will pay for it if you do that.
Well, Honorable Minister, it's so good for you to clear that. But we are pressed for time. But before we go, talk to us. What's the latest about the planned concession of 19 airports across the country? Talk to us about that.
We're advertising soon. With the blessing of Mr. President, we're advertising. We are calling, where we are now is that we are going and looking for concessionaires. But we are saying this time, the unions will be carried along. The major problem we had in the past before was that the unions were afraid we're going to lose jobs. Given my background, where I'm coming from, I will not accept the loss of jobs. I will not accept that concessions should lead to the loss of jobs. And so the unions will be fully carried along. I want to assure them that even anybody who is coming for concession of the airport should be sure that he will take on, give a first choice of refusal those who are already working at the airports and must source for his workforce from amongst them.
Well, let me quickly ask this question before we go. You raised concern recently about private jets being used for money laundering. And my question is, what steps have you taken to ensure that this stops? And some Nigerians also say that owners of private jets also use them for drug trafficking. What are you doing to ensure that this becomes a thing of the past?
We have taken two concrete steps. The first one is that we are working with the National Security Advisor to ensure that all aircrafts coming into this country, private aircrafts, they come into designated international airports and they are properly checked. And those also flying out should go through designated international airports. What was happening in the past is that you won't believe, Babajide, that so many aircrafts were flying into this country, private aircrafts through undesignated international airports. They'll fly in straight, and that is danger for this country. Unchecked. And sometimes they will just organize one or two friends or people who they know as immigration to say, okay, they have cleared us into the country and they stamped us in. We don't know what they are bringing in, what the aircrafts contain. And this practice has been going on for years. And they say it's so-called powerful individuals. I said I will not allow it under this government. I will not. And I spoke to the National Security Advisor. He gave me his full backing. Many of them ran from me because they know that sometimes I can be a hard nut to crack. They ran to him. Ribadu is harder than myself. Ribadu said, no, I will not allow you. So that is where we are. We have checked that. They all coming through designated international airports and we properly check them. The second one is that I have set up a task force to ensure that it is those private jets who they bring in and they have what they call PNCF licenses. PNCF licenses are licenses for private charter, private non-charter. Now, those ones, they must strictly keep to the tenets of or the terms of their license. The license they have to operate is private. They must not go commercial because we're also losing revenue in that regard too. And we can properly track those ones who are AOC holders, who carry commercial, who they are carrying, what they are carrying, where they are carrying them to, and their travel log, we can properly monitor them. Those are the two major steps we are taking, and we know it will yield results.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Minister Festus Keyamo, and also good luck the rest of your time in office. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. God bless you.
Well, Babajide, how time flies when we talk Nigeria. But I like the fact that when he talked about the MRO, and he talked about a 90% completion in Uyo, and the fact that we don't even have any in the entire stretch of West Africa.
And Central Africa.
And Central Africa as well.
It's a big money guzzler for airlines because they fly their aircraft there, they burn aviation fuel, and they have to pay for those C checks to be done. And the regulators here in Nigeria are very, very strict. You must do those C checks. It's their biggest guarantee that you are flying a safe aircraft. You know, those C checks give you a clean bill of health, and then they will allow you.
Yes.
You might imagine flying, when they are going for C checks, they take Nigerian regulators with them, and then fly back literally empty.
Exactly.
You know what that means.
Exactly.
But if they can do it here, and we've had that in the past. Nigeria of those glory days, we were doing it here.
All right,
so I pray that comes to fruition. Yeah. I'm excited that they have big plans, you know, to get the private sector involved in building these facilities so that the airlines can do their C checks here and stop wasting scarce foreign exchange in France and other places.
Well, looking at all of the things he said, it could be a leader of modern aviation in Nigeria.
Yes, but anyway, it's one of the ministers doing very well.
Yes.
Yes. Even if you hate him, you must admit.
You must have.
When you go to the international wing, you see some changes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, BKO. And also want to say thank you to the Honorable Minister for having this conversation with us on Journalist Hangout. And that's it on Journalist Hangout for today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program by 5 p.m. You can also watch a repeat broadcast by 11 o'clock.